for you, generally?
Uh, it's
Or
going to be in the short term, because I have drop-offs at the hospital at 9 o'clock. So it's going to be
Yeah.
in the short term. Oops, went live with that.
yep, that's all right. My bad.
All right. Hello everyone. My apologies for missing the past couple weeks. My family has a crisis and it's turned my world upside down. I can't really get into it. Uh, but I'm gonna try juggling some times to get things back on track at a different time. So one of the ideas is just push it back an hour on Tuesday. So we'll try that for now, and hopefully we can be consistent with that. And by we, I mean me. But uh you know we'll do our best to try to be more consistent going forward here. And my apologies to everyone who's been trying to reach me the past week. I'm gonna be responding to people today, so if you have questions about when am I gonna get back to you, I have a big list in Skype and email to go through, and that's probably gonna take my whole day today. So hopefully, the answer to that question is later today. I'll be getting back to you. Um, and my apologies again for that. Uh, but let's talk about SEO spring training. It's getting down to the wire. There is an amazing lineup. There are names I haven't seen in a long time. There are names I've seen every time. Uh, there's a lot of diversity in this year's lineup. And I wanted to have Terry and Elizabeth on a couple weeks ago, but it all fell apart on me. So my apologies to Terry and Elizabeth. We can try to do something in addition. Maybe we'll make a Terry and Elizabeth extra episode this week and get that out there. But it's probably getting down to the wire with spring training. So if you want to attend, this is a conference that has a habit of selling out. So it might be getting close to that if you are interested. And so keep in mind that there are two parts of selling out. There are the tickets to the event, and then there are the accommodations at the hotel. And it's usually better to be at the event hotel because you can network longer. You get in earlier and can talk to people in the morning, and you can stay later and stay for drinks and not have to drive or catch an Uber. So if you want the full experience, it's probably last chance warning here. So that's that. I'm excited about my topic. I'm excited about this show. So if you want to come meet us in person and network with people and talk about your SEO at the bar, which is one of my favorite things on earth, so always feel free to approach me and join the conversation. Uh, you know, uh, SEO spring training. He ranks #1 for it, so just Google it. All right. And again, if you have any questions you want to get us to, I know we have a backlog of 2 weeks of question demand coming up. Be sure to ask early because we might not have time for every question today. Whatever we don't answer, we'll save for next week, but we'll try to do as much as we can. And we're starting pretty late in the day, so I don't know how late Lee and Charles can stay. So if it's at all urgent to you, ask early rather than late. Okay. With that, Charles has a couple interesting topics for us to discuss. So I am going to enable the screen sharing because I am a professional here. And I'm going to let Charles take it away.
Sure, thanks, Ted. So, on a bit of a nostalgia, I was looking at Facebook last night for the first time in a while,
Mhm.
and I saw a picture, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's me in that picture. Oh, I'm standing next to Ted. Oh, I'm standing next to Lee as well. And then I realized that was the first time that all three of us were all together, and that was at spring training. So, when Ted talks about having, you never know who you're going to meet, and talking about things, after hours, that happens, and that was the first time the three of us had all met together.
Yeah, I saw
So.
that picture and my first thought was, damn, I let one photo get by.
So I made this like a couple weeks ago. So unfortunately, Lee, I may not be as animated today as I was when I made this a couple weeks ago, although I think I can get there. I'd like to talk about SEO metrics and KPIs. And really, this is data versus metrics versus KPIs, which are all similar, but they are different things. KPIs are metrics and data. Data is not KPIs. Metrics are not KPIs. So I'm already getting there already, Lee.
I can
So
feel it. I can feel
yeah,
it.
this is one that just drives me crazy. So this is going to probably be a bit of a rant, and I always enjoy a good laugh, and I find that Dilbert still kind of hammers home what things haven't changed. It's still the same now as it was in 2017, 2007. I mean that data, people are still making decisions based on bad data. And actually, not only are they making decisions on bad data, too many people don't even understand their numbers and they don't understand what numbers say. And it's not just SEOs, it's business owners, it's C-level executives, it's the folks underneath. I had a good conversation. I had a little, actually not a good, but a quick conversation with somebody, and we were talking about enterprise in general. And the KPI, too many people's the KPI is, how do I keep my job? That's their KPI, and that's their only KPI. And that goes like from the very bottom to the very top. And that happens in a lot of places. It's got a little pixelated. So I want to talk about data versus metrics versus KPI. And first, I just want to define what I think each of these are, because this kind of goes back to that whole index and crawl and discovered and that whole like sometimes the words we use aren't always the right words. So data is just information a company collects to make a decision. And that's the important part. Like there's raw data. I guess information you could have that wouldn't you be used to make a decision. Maybe that's raw data. So maybe there's another layer here. So there's raw data and then data. Metrics, that's a little quantitative and a little qualitative. They're used to track specific processes, activities. Again, not necessarily a KPI. So, for example, rankings might be a metric.
Mhm.
KPIs, key performance indicators. Metrics, so these are metrics tied to business objectives, indicating whether you're achieving key goals or not. And that's the key. A KPI is just a metric that's tied to a business objective. And it lets you know, are we winning? Are we losing? How are we doing?
So
So
this might be,
yeah, go
for
ahead.
example, number of page one rankings. Page one rankings is a metric.
Yes.
It's also, to a degree data, but as a metric, page one rankings, and the KPI might be, just number of, so how many keywords do we have ranked on page one? You know,
So like, yeah, rankings I think are a great example because rankings, in my mind, rankings aren't a KPI. But if your business objective is we want to achieve page one rankings for these 10K keywords, like that's our business objective. I would probably argue that's a bad objective, but if that's the objective, then yeah, page one rankings would be a KPI. So things really change, and it really boils down to one thing. It boils down to what is your business objective? What are you trying to achieve? What's your goal?
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah, please go
really
ahead. Yeah, I'm going to pause now and let you guys jump in because that's,
I really like this slide, and I like it because of the words you chose in the definition. So, data is about the what you're collecting, and metrics, quantitative measurements used to track. So tracking. And so when you track, you're typically quantizing into periods of time and warehousing. So you
Mhm.
collect raw data that's not lossy, And then you take the pieces that are important to you and you warehouse them in an efficient, logical manner so that you can report on them. And that's your metrics. And then you're indicating things with those metrics, the KPIs. And my favorite indicator in SEO has always been organic revenue. Because if anything is wrong with the business, it shows up in the organic revenue indicator. So if your warehouse burns down, that shows up in the organic revenue.
Mhm.
If your products are awful, that shows up in the organic revenue. If your website got hacked, that shows up in the organic revenue. And if your SEO got worse, that shows up in the organic revenue.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, these indicators, they indicate if something is going wrong. And, everybody's like, well, I need the KPIs to know when we're breaking records and everything is. No, you don't. When you're, blowing the roof off the house with success, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
What you really need is to know when somebody broke something, and you need to know right away because it's going to kill your numbers for the month. And so that early warning a signal that something has gone wrong is vital. And the timing of that indicator telling you, warning, warning, that will coincide with the thing that went wrong. It'll be a deployment from the developers. It'll be a change you made last night. It'll be an attack that is frustrating the network admin at that time. The timing of the KPI events is like critical to diagnosing what went wrong. And so, yeah, I love this slide.
I agree, but you know what? There are a couple of things here that set me off, Charles.
Excellent. That's my goal.
I appreciate you taking the time and the concern there. A couple of things. One is when you look at the indicators, and Ted, you started to talk about this, there are leading and lagging indicators. Revenue tells you what happened, but a leading indicator might be, if you start to see rankings starting to slide across the number of pages, but they're not necessarily your primary pages yet. Revenue looks fine, but the SEO is degrading, and then all of a sudden, you don't know what happened until later when it just starts to drag the major pages down as well. So there are leading indicators that are predictive of what's coming, as opposed to revenue, which tells you what just happened, unless you've got it
All right.
live in real time.
Fight words.
Go, baby. Let's go.
There are leading indicators that don't predict that people think do predict, like rankings.
Which is my second rant. Thank you. I agree with you, sir. Let's jump on Charles.
So now that I'm looking back at this deck 2 weeks later, I realized there's something I missed from here. I should have put raw data and then data, because there's a lot of confusion. People bring in raw data all the time, and you'll see it in the crawl stats, you'll see it in log files. And I'm not raw data isn't necessarily bad, but often people try to use raw data to make decisions. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We need to know what our business objective is. And so many times I've spoken in-house and with customers, and they say, I would like to know what our revenue is. I'd like to know what our rankings is. I'd like to know, are we doing better? And my first question is like, what is our objective? Mm-hmm. And then I get silence. And all right, that's the first thing we need to solve for. Because SEO can help you with a lot of things, but I have to know what your objective is. Is your objective to get more traffic? Is your objective to, you may speak to a small business and they say, my objective is to get my phone ringing more often. Okay, great. Now, how do we use SEO to help you get there? But to Ted's point, there's other things that affect that. Just like with SEO revenue, there's things that will affect your SEO revenue that I have no control over, but it is a good number to watch. Now, once you know your KPIs, once you know your metrics, I say watch it like a hawk.
Well, wait, yep. Sir, because I think you said tied to business objectives, as we know, those things can be siloed.
Yeah.
So if I'm the PPC guy and Ted's the SEO guy, my KPI is, revenue tied to my, I'm bidding on
That's
those branded
That's
keywords.
why I said business objectives, Mr. Witcher, and not team objectives, because that's a huge thing that I know I get into. Different teams have different KPIs. And then
Yeah,
when they bump into each other, yeah, the PPC guy versus the SEO versus some, a
Yeah,
display media, they all have different KPIs.
the PPC team, their most important KPI is how much top line revenue can they steal from the SEO.
And the biggest problem I run into is often the team KPIs do not tie into the business objectives.
exactly.
The two things end up there ends up how I can't tell you how many businesses I've worked with, both large and small, where there's a business objective, and then you start talking to individual teams, and they create these KPIs that really don't support the business. They'll say they do if you ask them, but when you say, "Explain to me how this supports the business," they won't be able to explain it to you.
No.
Mainly because they don't know numbers. And that gets me to my next set of rants. Executives love data. Data's raw potential, but it's in and itself is useless. Data is useless all by itself. Data feels good, and I've done this. You graph and chart the data, especially if it's going up to the right. Ooh, people love that. Make it green, folks. If you're going to make a chart and it goes up a little bit, make the chart green. Don't make it blue. Definitely don't make it red. Data needs to be crafted into a story. The problem is data is often cherry picked to suit someone's needs. Don't do this. Take the data and say, this is what we're seeing. Here's something that may even disagree with the story your data is starting to tell you. Say, hey, this is the story that's happening. Here's something that's happening that doesn't make sense or doesn't align with the data. Executives don't like that, by the way. They don't like seeing that. They want a nice, cohesive story.
You're right about that. And the I will throw in there. I was talking to another SEO this morning about something that I think you're probably going to get into which is, are you qualified to interpret the data? You're talking about the executive suite here, and I'm thinking, I'm thinking directly about that problem, because a chart going up and to the right can also be an indication of a problem. That if you understand the numbers beneath it, you can see the problem, but everybody sees the chart up and to the right and says, oh man, we're doing great. Our KPIs are, off the hook, off the charts, and, our business is due for record, earnings and stuff.
I have been congratulated for ranking brand terms at an enterprise organization by executives. And it always caught me off guard when it first started happening, because like, oh, wait, no, I haven't shown you anything good yet. This is just to show you that I've been here and working. This isn't even to prove that we've done anything. The slide that showed that I'm doing a good job is like slide number 4 or 5. Just 1 or 2 is just showing you that we're actually in the game. But yes, this is my common thing. People love data in general. It's not just executives. People love data in general, and they almost always mistake it for information. And data and information are 2 different things. I will pause and let Lee and Ted jump in. I'll do a lot of pausing on this one.
If your boss is congratulating the setup before the news, don't diffuse it. Let it ride. All right. And just say, well, if you like that, then you're going to really like what's coming up.
So you're right, Ted. It took me about 6 to 8 months to figure that out when I first started it. And what I ended up doing is I ended up breaking it up into many presentations. First, I had the brand presentation, which to me, I felt like I was cheating, but okay, whatever. And then I would do another one another week and another one another week. But yeah, so
I'm just gonna say -5 respect points for doing the brand presentation, but also you're making a key point about executives here, which is the fundamental point about the interpretation of the data.
So here's my suggestion, Lee. -5 for doing that, but +10 charisma points for
oh yeah, clearly it's organizational policy.
Navigating the organization properly.
Oh, beautiful. You are, sir, are a professional sailor on the waters there. You're navigating the seas flawlessly.
So let's talk about metrics. I like metrics. To me, metrics are a barometer. Metrics are typically quick milestones. They let you know where you're doing. So, for example, rankings, and I have a whole bunch of what I would consider metrics. Metrics can be a KPI, but metrics in and of themselves are just a barometer. Are you doing well? So rankings, they show your SEO is on the right path. Impressions, I love impressions myself because it really shows you whether Google quote unquote likes your site. However, impressions have to be, you have to do a lot of parsing with impressions because my impressions can go up. That can mean a lot of things. And this is where understanding the data becomes important. If my impressions go up, that means maybe I have more pages ranking for more keywords. Maybe I have a small set of pages ranking for more keywords. Maybe I have one page ranking better for one keyword. Those are all three very different stories. And we'll get into the different stories that data tells soon. Traffic shows your marketing's working. Percentage of SEO traffic shows SEO traffic versus other channels. This is a big one in large organizations. And this is my personal favorite to rant on, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Share a voice, that's one thing executives love share a voice. They want to know, the CEO wants to know how much better are we doing than Tedco and LeeCo and ClintCo? Are we beating them out or are they beating us out? Now, one good question that I do get a lot of times from executives is if we're doing better, is everyone doing better or just we doing better? And they're trying to gauge the industry. They're trying to figure out as an industry, are we all rising or are we the only ones growing and everyone else is going down? I think that is a good thing to look at. Balance rate, conversion rate, and
Hold on.
sales.
Charles, you also have seen, because I know this from other conversations we've had, you've seen executives in a declining industry just still want that share of voice. We want to be,
Yes.
dying less quickly than our competitors. We know
I
that
was told that in the last couple of months by somebody I was speaking with. Their goal, they essentially said, we know we're in a dying industry. Our goal is just to die slower than everybody else. We just want to be the last one in the ground, I guess. Which, okay, I guess that's a business objective. That's I think it's a weird business objective, but it is a business objective. That's fair.
yeah.
Yeah, I always was kind of conflicted about the name share of voice because it doesn't matter how many people are screaming. It matters how many people are listening to you. So really, you want the share of eyeballs or the share of ears.
So,
Mhm.
so, Ted, you reminded me of something I meant to say about share of voice. You're absolutely right. Share of voice, it's something that people love talking about. You open up any prospectus from any company, they're going to have a whole page about share of voice. But the question I was like, what does share of voice mean? Like it can mean so many different things. Is that how much traffic you're getting versus other people's traffic? Is it impressions versus other people's impressions? Is it rankings? There's a lot of ways you could calculate share of voice. So I'm not a huge fan of this one, mainly because it's so poorly defined. Like
I will
like
I will tell you
share
this.
of voice for advertisers on television would be very different from a digital share of voice.
Hmm. I remember back in 2000, when before the internet craze, the .com craze led to the crash. That one of the big things is they weren't tracking visitors; they were tracking eyeballs, which is basically almost 2x visitors because two eyes per. But they're like, it's not about visitors; it's about eyeballs, and so they literally would calculate 2 times the number of visitors just to make the number bigger. And that's when I knew that this whole thing was going to come crashing down.
You know, that's
I'll
discriminatory to people who have lost an eye.
I understand. So I said almost two because it's
so
1.9
that's
something.
that suggests that people with one eye buy half as much as people with two eyes, which I don't think is true. So
Bring
I
your
would I
data,
would refer
sir.
you, Lee, I would refer you back to one of the first couple slides I had with the Dilbert cartoon where someone is like, "Oh, let's use that number. Let's use that number later."
Oh yeah, I was feeling it when I read that. It's like, oh, there's a few situations I'm feeling. Go ahead, sir.
KPI. So just going back to your eyeballs, and that's actually a good segue into KPIs. So the question is, okay, we measure eyeballs. My question would be, why are we measuring eyeballs? And it could be because we get paid on ad impressions on our site. Perfect. And that
Or you're selling eye patches.
we're selling eye patches. There you go. Well, then you wouldn't want to, well, I guess you would want to double the number because somebody with one bad eye would only purchase 50% of someone with two bad eyes. But yeah, like, so often you'll hear folks say, well, I want to know this number. I want to know that number. We're selling eyeballs. Okay. How are we making money off of eyeballs? And it could be as simple as, well, we make money off of display ads, unique impressions on our display ads. Okay, then yes, unique. Then we need to form a KPI that measures whether we're going to make that. So just driving traffic isn't as important as driving unique traffic. Because if we're making more money off unique impressions than we are off just impressions, we need to figure out how we build a KPI. And that's how you work backwards, which is why I always ask folks, what's the business goal? So the KPIs is, are you meeting your business goals? Meaning, are you winning? Metrics can be KPIs. KPIs are metrics, but metrics aren't always KPIs, but what is the goal of the company? How do you make money? That's the big question. How do you make money? Do you even know how you make money? What's the goal of your SEO or any marketing campaign? Is to better convert users? Is it, really the goal of SEO is to support the business goals of the business. So I get it.
Yeah.
The KPI is, what's the purpose of the company? What are you trying to do? And if you don't know that and don't have that real clear, you're never going to get to the next step, which is winning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that dot-com bubble because I sat in boardroom after boardroom, meeting after meeting, where people were telling me that I didn't understand the new economy, that it was about growing, your audience fast and everything else. I said, okay, so let's skip forward a little bit. We build the audience of everybody. Everybody is in our audience now, and we've managed to pull off that miracle. Now what? And nobody had an answer for now what. Nobody has said, I understand economics. At some point, we're expending money like, we're putting, you know, flames to stacks and stacks of cash. And at some point, you're going to have some cash inflow or this model's not sustainable. Like, you don't understand. It's a new economy. It's about eyeballs. It's about this. And I'm like, okay.
Charles,
Yeah.
can you diagnose problems with your KPIs without accurately tracking your metrics?
Not necessarily, no. That's why I always say metrics, I use them like a barometer. So to Ted's point, if our KPI, so we have a KPI and our KPI is organic revenue, and then that starts dropping. The first thing I do is I go back to my barometers, my metrics to try to figure out, okay, what's causing it? Is it because traffic has dropped? Is it because the warehouse burned down? Is like I start looking at certain things. So if our organic traffic drops or organic revenue drops, let's say, and then I look back, our traffic, our impressions, everything's still going up, then I would say it's probably conversion. And then I'd have to talk to someone who's in charge of conversion and say, what's going on with conversion? And we find conversion's the same. I was like, okay, if traffic and impressions and traffic are up and conversion's fine, but sales are still down, then maybe things are out of stock. Now we're getting into things that are way outside of SEO, but it's how we then. So the direct answer to your question, Clint, is I don't think a KPI really answers what exactly is wrong. The KPI tells you we're off track somehow. And then you use the metrics to figure out where you're off track, what's not working. And is it even something I can control? If suddenly there's a tariff war and suddenly nothing's getting imported in and we're out of stock. So SEO could be doing great, but our revenue will be down because we have nothing to sell.
Yeah, for most of our audience, the metrics people are using is Google Analytics. And the problem with tools like that is all tools fail. And so Google Analytics, it has the JavaScript portion to its integration. And if that's going slowly, you can potentially click before the Google Analytics JavaScript has run. There's a number of ways that can fail on you. And because of that, if you're tracking e-com revenue in Google Analytics, you're probably missing about 25%, at least 25% of your revenue and orders. And so the way you verify the lossiness of that system is you will compare the Google Analytics revenue to the revenue that hit the payment processor, because the payment processor has never lost a penny and Google Analytics loses a lot of pennies. And so, because of that, those metrics, those measurements that are being warehoused in quantized windows of time, usually by days, weeks, months, years, um, those things are suitable for some problems, but not suitable for other problems. So if you're wondering, should I build a mobile friendly website? Well, you can look at it as sample data and say, well, what percentage of our users are using mobile devices? And it's perfectly good for answering a problem like that. But if you're saying, how much should I pay Clint in affiliate sales using Google Analytics data? Well, that's going to be a disservice to Clint because he's going to lose at least 25% of what he's owed. And so, yeah, it all comes back to those goals, which this is an important thing. Again, bringing it back to SEO. um, what are you trying to accomplish? And I bring that up because as old as time, SEOs have been doing accidental SEO where they go to Search Console, they get all of their search queries, they put them in their rank tracker, and then they start losing their mind when a bunch of them go red, even though they're not trying to tune hardly any of them. And they spend all their month doing their rank tracking and freaking out about the things they're not tuning. Um, what's the goal? So yeah, you need to figure out what you're trying to solve. What data can you use to get information? What metrics can you use to address the problems? You know, I the only thing that's missing from this is the connect it to the SEO, but it's all there. Like, you've been through all of this. And what's crazy is that if you manage to figure out how to use revenue as an SEO metric, it's a game changer for larger organizations. Like, if you can bridge that gap, then you can do something that most SEOs have never done, not even once. And it's a different game when you say, I'm going to do SEO on the website, and how did it impact organic revenue from search? Because that's a totally different game than I'm going to do SEO on the website and did my rankings go up? And one game has got a lot better bragging rights.
Yeah, I love your use of organic revenue as the primary. And to go back to what Charles was saying, earlier, if organic revenue this month compared to last month is down, I mean, there's the key KPIs. It's staring us in the face, but the why? Why is it down? Well, there's a whole lot of different things that, a lot of paths to get there, a lot of rabbit holes you got to go down to figure out what the problem is. And so I love that particular piece, as a simplified, let's just look at, how much money came through the door, this period versus some previous period, and see whether we're doing, better or worse. It's a valuable, because it does tie to it. But the other thing is, I love that because it also gets away from some of the siloed KPIs, like we talked about PPC versus SEO, or some of the other things. But even within SEO, you can say, hey, our rankings are up, our impressions and clicks are up, but our revenue's down. Why? Well, because we went and ranked for a bunch of keywords that don't convert. So we're bringing we're bringing a lot of traffic onto the site, but it's non-converting traffic.
Or you're ranking for something that's the wrong season. Like, I'm ranking for sweaters in June and July. And it's like, yeah, I'm ranking great. I'm getting traffic for sweaters, but no one's going to buy because it's June and July.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you may even be ranking for good stuff, but at the wrong time. So just to your point, Lee, often when a KPI is off or down, you have to then go back and dig into your metrics and sometimes even dig into data and come up with a new metric. Say, okay, something else is going on that I didn't see. Go digging through the data and find information in there. Say, oh, this is what I just found looking at the data. This is up, this is down.
Yeah, there's
One
a great
slide yeah, sorry, go ahead.
there's a great example of this because we've seen some of this in recent months, where my impressions are up, my rankings haven't changed, my clicks are down, and then people go and check for those particular keywords and see that now there's an AI overview at the top. So basically everything else has been shoved down, and the number of clicks, to the different things that now are below that thing change.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen numerous people say, "Hey, I'm number one now," and my organic traffic, my clicks went down. And yeah, there's actually volatility in what's being shown above organic. And
Right.
number one could be middle of page two.
So this goes back to what you were saying, Charles. Now we got to go in. We figured it out. Now we need another, measurement within there, another set of data, another metric in there that measures, which keywords now are impacted by, this new factor that's come into play.
I find in general my metrics are pretty fluid. Like there are certain ones I like to go back to. Again, I love impressions, not because it's because it's a kind of a fuzzy number. You've got to dig into it to find out what it's telling you, but it gives me an overall sense of am I going in the right direction or not. But yeah, there's times where I'll dig into things and say, oh well, and we'll talk about this in a few seconds, but then you have to dig in to figure out what the numbers are telling you. Now, one thing I did not do here in any way, shape, or form, and Lee, I knew that you might ask this question, you haven't asked yet, is I didn't even discuss whether these numbers are right or not. I'm doing this whole presentation assuming the data we're getting is accurate. I've never worked in an organization, big or small, where anyone has said, "Oh yeah, we got great numbers." Everyone always ends up telling me, "Yeah, this isn't right, but it's the best we got." That I get that all the time.
Yeah, if you want to know if your data is natural, and not all data is. So, but if you think it should be natural data, then you run a Benford's analysis on it.
Hmm.
And we have episodes where we did that against the keyword planner data, and we showed that they are cooking their books, and everybody knows they're cooking the books because the volume numbers are all quantized. I mean, it's visibly cooked numbers. But if the numbers are natural numbers, which they should be, coming out of like visitor logs and things like that, then you should be able to pass a Benford's on most of those. And so that would be one way to just sniff test the data to say, is this the way I think it should be, or do we need to investigate what the hell's going on? And if you haven't heard of Benford's Law, Google it. There's a Wikipedia page. There's an excellent Radio Lab episode on it too, if you want an easy walkthrough.
I'd like to rant about percentages now.
110%.
Everyone, nobody understands percentages. Percentages show relationships.
Whoa, yeah. I do.
Okay. Most people I've worked with don't seem to understand percentages. Percentages show relationships. All scenario. So I have, and here's a percentage that was really important at a recent employer. Percentage of SEO traffic. Now, percentage of SEO traffic is an interesting percentage to use. I'm comparing myself to all the other traffic channels. It's a great personal or team KPI to say, hey, is our team growing in comparison to everybody else? But ultimately, as a business, having Charles Taylor, really, blowing out all the numbers is great. But as a business, you want all the channels growing, and they all should be growing relatively equally. Granted, they won't always do that. So are all of these scenarios equal? And let's look at the first scenario. Our percentage of SEO traffic drops. So what could drive that? All channels rose, but SEO rose slower. All channels were flat, SEO dropped. All channels dropped, SEO dropped more. All channels rose, SEO was flat. And one channel jumped a lot and SEO is flat or relatively flat.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things would show a drop in our percentage of SEO traffic, but those are all very different scenarios, which mean very different potential problems. On the reverse, if everybody wants to have a congratulations and pat themselves on the back when your percentage of SEO traffic rises, well, here are some scenarios I've seen where SEO traffic, percentage of SEO traffic rises. All channels rose, but just SEO rose faster. All channels were flat, but SEO rose. So those are the good ones. All channels rose, SEO rose more. All channels dropped, SEO was flat. One channel dropped a lot, SEO is flat. And there's lots more combinations. But I would not pat myself on the back if the last scenario happened versus the first scenario or the third scenario happened.
And be careful, because everybody likes the snowball maneuver, which is last quarter, our SEO growth was 0.001% better. And this quarter, it's 0.002% better. That's 100% SEO growth.
A percent of a percent.
Love that.
And so, people often lie with statistics. And so just be prepared to defend your statistics, especially to executives who have been lied to the most with them.
And I agree 100%. I just think it's important that if you're going to use this, any metric, but especially a metric like a percentage of SEO traffic, like a share of voice, something that's based on other numbers, it's really a relationship. You just need to understand what goes into driving that relationship up or down. Don't pat yourself on the back because a percentage went up. Maybe you didn't do anything. And also don't beat yourself up, and also don't feel like you're not doing your job if the percentage goes down, because it may not have had anything to do with what you did. It could be an external, something external happened that you have no control over. That door swings both ways. So percentages are the big one. I like percentages because they show relationships, but most folks don't understand percentages. And you're right, Ted. Percentage of a percent drives me insane.
Yeah,
I didn't even put that in here.
Yeah, stats are only as good as your defense of them, and so you have to come prepared, or you'll be made to look a fool.
Yeah, but the other thing is you also have, and I've seen this a lot, whereas we need to show something, so we'll segment out some portion of the data. So as ludicrous as it sounds, if you look at our SEO as a percentage of business on a Tuesday, we're killing all the other channels. And everybody's like, yay, Charles, way to go on Tuesday. It's like, and that could just be a normal
and not just Tuesday, 1 hour on Tuesday.
Yeah,
we're awful on Tuesday afternoons.
Right. And there may be reasons for that. Maybe it's something else, like some of the other channels or are particularly active during those windows. And so SEO is doing just fine. It's sailing along here, but the other ones are going up and down. And so the percentage of SEO is going up and down. It has nothing to do with anything the SEO team is doing, but they're being judged based on that.
I worked for a telecommunications organization, I won't say their name, who they put a discount out. They ran specials. And every time they ran a special, sales would go up. And you guess what all the teams did on those weeks during our sales calls? We patted ourselves on the back. I shouldn't say we. They patted themselves on the back. How great we did this week. It's like, we didn't do anything. We didn't do anything. Finance agreed to drop the price of the product. Of course, sales went up. That has nothing to do with anything. We could have literally all gone on vacation for the week. Sales would have still gone up because we made a better price point.
Yeah, and nobody wants to talk about the next week.
No. That's next week's problem. No, everybody lives week to week. That's next week's problem. And then I didn't even get into attribution, and maybe I'll do a deck about attribution because that drives me crazy too. Because folks, if you don't understand percentages, you're never going to understand attribution, and that can get real confusing. It's been a while since I've done the deck. I forget the. So quick pitch. If you need help deciphering SEO data, building dashboards that clients love. I'm all about dashboards. I'm all about data. I like data. Just make sure you're aligning what you're doing with what clients need and want, with what their goals are. I shouldn't even say need and want, but what their goals are. Find out what their business goals are, and then align something, and then figure out how to make something that's automated. I'm a big believer in automated. If you're running reports manually every week or every month, oh my goodness, don't do that. Please
Yeah.
don't do that.
And just know there's a big difference between having a dashboard of data that's actually telling you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong versus playing Star Trek Commander with the coolest UI and charts and graphs all day. So if you
Exactly.
want to play Star Trek Commander, that's fine, but that's not SEO and that's not using data. So you
Exactly.
actually have to use it.
Yeah, I would recommend everyone figure out what the business objective is. What's the business objective? And then how is SEO going to support that business objective? And you build your KPI around that. And then you can have metrics to let you know whether you're going in the right direction or not, because you're not going to necessarily. So if organic revenue is your KPI, that's fine, but it may take 4 to 6 months to start seeing growth. What metrics are you going to use to let you know you're going in the right direction, or have you been spinning your wheels? And I'm also a big believer in make sure you have all the data possible. Like you may have to pull on other pieces of data. Have that ready. Have that you're ready so you can dig into it. So I will, before I close down here, I'll let you guys, if you want to jump in with anything.
Well, I look forward to your rant on the averages.
Average of averages.
I'll say where I was going when I asked you the question, and I didn't want to
Yeah.
lead you into the answer that you gave because that was the answer that I was actually looking for. And the reason I asked that question is because on social media and in the SEO community now, people are telling other people, and in particular, our clients, client base, our audience, that tracking rankings and tracking impressions and tracking traffic is all vanity metrics, and that you don't have to do that. You don't just track the money, track the sale that you're getting from the SEO. Well, and I say from the SEO because that's the product that we're offering, but it leads to everything: the sales you're getting from social media, the sales you're getting from email marketing, etc. They want you to just track that, and the new game now is to say that everything else is the vanity metric. That also, to me, ironically coincides with rank for your brand. You need to worry about your branding, increase your branding, increase your branding. But a real marketer knows that you don't just increase your branding with one channel, you're increasing your branding with multiple marketing channels. And the idea or the concept of building a brand is by just having your brand in the faces to get more impressions of your brand name. If I want to build Lee Witcher as a brand, tested SEO training as a brand, I gotta put that in as many places as possible, in as front of as many people. And that leads into the attribution conversation you said you had. Like, just because Ted did a billboard for Lee doesn't mean it's going to convert, but it's branding, right?
Well, it does convert into brand search.
Well,
All
I'm
channel
not playing.
marketing
I'm
converts.
playing on the
Yeah.
end game of
Yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah.
So it's not going to convert in money. So my KPI is money, and I'm not going to be able to measure a newspaper ad in particular, or as an example, or a television ad or a billboard by just money alone. I have to measure impressions, and I have to see geolocations and all that other kind of thing to try to attribute the final sale to that thing. So it's not, and it, so in that regard, I'm glad that you said it without being led into it, because I hopefully a lot of people will actually get it now that you can't have vanity metrics, rank tracking, visibility, share of voice, traffic they're all important and they all support the KPI. I will contradict Ted in when he says, "Oh, yes, being able to see the money at the point of sale and then attributing it properly to a marketing channel is the best way to make sure that you
For
met your KPI."
for larger organizations,
There
I
you go.
think
You left that
qualify
part
that.
out. So I just want to
No,
make
I
sure,
didn't.
like,
I left it
if
in.
you're like, yeah, if you're a small business owner and you're doing your own SEO, you can do it. But if you're an SEO serving a small business and you made the stupid mistake of selling them leads and sales versus what you can actually measure and provide, you're at the mercy of your conversion number that you create inside of your analytics tool. So, and I use if I am tied to money, typically it's going to be an e-commerce platform where I can do like Ted said and see their point of sale. Particularly, I like Shopify clients because it's all right there. It, they're their payment processor and everything, and you can see it. But the plumber is not going to give me access to that. So I use average lifetime value of the customer and maybe like what are you paying for leads now, and then that's the conversion number that, and we'll use that as our money KPI to see if that we're doing good. So yeah, that's that's what I had that.
No,
I
so Clint,
agree.
you make a good point. There are a lot of people out there talking about building the brand, and I'm a big fan of the brand signal. Like, are you building a brand signal for the client? But then they'll do stuff, and then they don't really. You got to follow up. So I had a client just recently. He started doing app ads, and I'm playing, Plants vs Zombies or something, and I see his app ad show up. I'm like, what's this? And so I reached out to him. I was like, is this you or is this some affiliate running? He's like, no, it's us. We're trying to run a thing. I'm like, okay, cool. When did you start it? Because then I want to figure out, is it helping? And we looked at a couple different metrics. I said, well, let's look at brand searches. Have his brand searches gone up in any way, shape, or form over the life of this? What about his direct traffic? Has his direct traffic gone up? Obviously, we can see where the traffic's coming. Has his mobile traffic increased? Like, we looked at a whole bunch of metrics trying to figure out, did it help the business at all? So if you're not tying that in, if you're going to do something for a client, that's great. But you should tie it into something. Say, look, this is what we did. And now maybe you're doing a brand build just because it's hey, it's good for SEO. We got to build up we got to build the knowledge panel or something like that. Okay, then that's fine. Then that's the KPI. The KPI is get the knowledge panel because we know we're an entity in Google then. But yeah, there's a lot of people doing things without something tied, without a number tied to it. It's like, well, then why are we doing it if there's not a number tied to it? Um,
And before everyone runs off to get conversion and revenue tracking and Google Analytics set up, just know that that can be a 3 to 6 month web development project before you get started on it. So if it's not built into the website platform, just know it can be a big body of work, and you wouldn't want to delay SEO on a 6 month project when you're being judged on SEO results. So sometimes you just have to make do with what you got, which is not a lot. All right, let's get to some questions. With AI overviews popping up frequently but not consistently, is there a way to track AI overviews that you're aware of? Not yet, but tools are coming. I've had multiple people tell me they're inventing new rank trackers because of all the changes Google has made. So I'd say change is coming on from multiple tool providers. Hey Ted, wondering if you have any idea what's causing my site to decline. It's slowly declining over weeks rather than violent drops lower, down from 1 million clicks per month to 100K now. It would honestly take like a full audit to get a decent idea. Oftentimes, when I see the very slow declines, that's usually a technical SEO issue. So if it's like an online store, that's often an infinite crawl type of thing. But it could be a number of different things, and without the audit, it would be hard to tell.
Might
But
not even be your website. It could be your market.
yep.
A scented candles client. People aren't buying scented candles right now. Guess what happened? Sales drop.
Uh, but I'm assuming that they're normally, at that level
Yeah.
constantly. But yeah, get an audit from someone you trust. Ideally, someone that can spot technical issues like infinite crawls from Google and things like that, negative SEO. So a fairly well-rounded technical generalist SEO audit. Um, let's see. Interpretation of the data, the mother of all 2 + 2 = 5. Yeah, I've definitely been in meetings where people looked at the same measurement and one person thinks it's the greatest thing that's ever happened and another person thinks it's the worst nightmare that ever befell the company. Uh, yeah, people see it based on their own, problem awareness. And so somebody in the fulfillment center might feel differently than somebody on the product buying team about a number. And just know there are multiple perspectives, and interpretation is usually just one of multiple perspectives. And the best interpretations, the best reporting will consider the numbers from those viewpoints and will say, this is good for the buyers because of X, but it's bad for the fulfillment center because of Y. That is good analysis when you have that multitude of perspectives. But that's hard to do because you have to wear a lot of hats to do it. Any thoughts on interpretation?
Oh, I see it all the time, especially dealing with like people's questions on Quora, because they'll say this correlates and this doesn't, therefore, without understanding, how correlation works and, when little quirks in the data can manipulate the numbers up or down and mislead you and things like that. So you can have these wonderful things, or even going back to our earlier conversation, if we're sitting in a boardroom and I'm going, hey, PPC, revenue is up this month and you're going SEO revenue is down this month. So is it a good metric? Is it a bad metric? It
Yeah,
depends on what.
it just means PPC is better.
Absolutely, I agree with you. As the PPC guy in this example, of course it's better. But from the executive standpoint, it could be better or worse depending on whether I spent money and the PPC team spent money getting traffic that we were already going to get anyway. In which case, we took profit down. Revenue might be up, but profits may be down because we spent a lot more to get what we were already going to get.
Yeah, the problem with that one is that takes perspective that not all executives have. And
I am
so, yeah.
aware.
I refer you to one of my slides where it said executives love data. They don't know, most of them don't know what they means, but I know there's a lot of talk lately. I'm gonna be a little subversive here. There's a lot of talk lately about replacing employees with AI. I will submit that you can replace most executives with AI without a problem. Um, Keep the employees where they are, replace half the C-suite with AI. I think the organization will be just fine.
I'm
All
not
right.
gonna. I can't argue against that. Too many experiences.
Question. Do you think Google gives it more authority when a third party creates content about you than when you create content about yourself? Or is it based on the authority of the source? Well, I've got two answers and they could potentially be different. One is yes, backlinks work. All right, so that's one answer. The other answer is over in map search. Google used to present third-party roundup articles of the top 20 best karaoke bars in Seattle. And they would present the title of the roundup and it would be a link to the article. They used to present it in the search results, right where they normally present the review snippets. And then they took that away, because we talked about it, and the week after it went away and it never came back. Might be a coincidence, but again, it was very fishy. But if Google is looking for it out in the world and they're parsing it out of the web pages and they're storing it in these massive databases and they're sometimes even presenting it in the search results, how much of a stretch of the imagination is it to think they might be scoring with it too? So that's my answer. What do you think, Clint?
I think that if Ted said Charles was an SEO expert and Ted is a known SEO expert, that adds some validity to Charles, right? But if Lee is a brand new SEO guy and he says Charles is an SEO expert, that doesn't nearly do as much.
Yeah, that does harm.
It could, yeah, for sure.
Well, that goes down what you've done a lot, Clint, with schema and entities. It depends on what if Ted is an SEO entity and Lee is not, then Google's going to trust Ted's reference because Ted equals SEO to Google, whereas Lee equals masonry, let's say.
0 plus 0 equals 0. So Lee has no, in that particular topic, he may or may not have no known authority, which is generally he hasn't gotten any backlinks. No one's saying that Lee's an SEO expert. So how the hell can he say Charles is an SEO expert? Whereas Ted has got a whole bunch of those backlinks saying he is an SEO expert. That's where there goes qualifies him to say Charles is an SEO.
So the question begs, if Charles says Clint is an SEO expert and Clint says Lee is an SEO expert and Lee says Ted is an SEO expert and then Ted says Charles is an SEO expert. So we have a whole little like experience wheel. Will that work?
Now you have a knowledge graph.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't go infinite because Google has an if statement that says, if we've seen this URL before, don't visit it again. So you'd have to engineer infinite URLs, which can be done, but...
Clint, I thought you were going to give a different answer to this question, which goes more along the line of, I am also the third party talking about myself.
Yeah, every local SEO should be a travel blogger because that way you can be in different places every week. Now I'm in Tallahassee. Let's talk about the top 10 best barber shops in Tallahassee. Now I'm in Seattle. Let's talk about the top 10 best Mexican restaurants in Seattle. Every local SEO should be a travel blogger so that you can get your third party roundups. In fact, you might want to be 5 or 6 travel bloggers.
Well, the third party creating content about you, we call those PBNs and press releases and
well, it depends. It depends if it's, genuine experience. Like if you did research and said, hey, what are the best Mexican restaurants? And you did a survey, do a survey monkey of people in the area and share your results. That's all valid analysis. It can be white hat. It doesn't have to be all made up lies.
But made up lies work.
They work. They work the same and they're cheaper.
And it pisses people off.
Thanks, Clint. I was just going to say, but they could be made up lies.
There's a whole presentation on Brighton SEO last week about EAT. They're talking about EAT, and they completely ignored that Google came out and said, this is what EAT is applied to, and this is what it's not. And this is, it does you good to optimize for EAT for X, but not Y. They completely ignore that, and they went on a rant about how people were making up authors and fake doctors, that kind of stuff. Like I wouldn't go so far as making a fake doctor, but you could. There's nothing to say that I can't make Dr. Lee Witcher.
Well, there might be laws on that one.
That's also true.
Well, it depends on if I'm practicing medicine, yes, but if I'm writing a health blog, then I could have.
I don't know. Fake
Dr.
medical opinions could get you in serious trouble.
Not if you put in there disclaimers that these are not medical advice. This is just medical. This is just our opinion based off of blah, blah, blah. You can cover your ass in plenty of ways and do it legally and make a fake person. And Google will not does not know the difference. If there's
Consult a
enough,
lawyer first.
if there's enough Mrs. Leanne Witchers around, if I make Leanne Witcher, and there's enough references to Leanne Witcher, then Google will essentially put together that Leanne Witcher is a real person, when in fact it's not. And it doesn't take all that much work. Twitter account, Instagram account, LinkedIn account, and, and then you're done. And maybe a website, you're done. And you just keep pushing that out. Leanne Witcher, Dr. Leanne Witcher. Doesn't say what she's a doctor of. We'll just call it, genetic psychology. We'll make some shit up. She's a doctor. Ta-da, you're a doctor now. Or you can either have one of those fake doctors of sociology. There you go. You can use that. So
Wow. Alienating the sociology group in the SEO community right there.
All
Ratings
right. Let's see, where are we at? Last weekend, we had a website where the SEO before us had made thousands of redirect errors. The website was a www website. So, to help solve this with their limited money, here's what we did. We 301 permanently redirected every single URL to the non-www version. My question is, this site has one of the best backlinking profiles I've ever seen. By doing this, did we hurt our really strong backlink profile? Um, Here's the thing. Every redirect Google has to pass through counts as a layer of linking. So if each layer of linking loses 30% of the authority or 15% of the authority, then multiple chained redirects would be a very painful cost. If you are not serving the www and all of the history was in www, then a redirect to the correct version of the URL and the proper canonical on the correct version of the URL is probably in order. So that's how you would clean that up and get Google to eventually move over to the canonical form of that URL. So I'd say, you're probably okay with what you did as long as it was done on a URL by URL basis. What I wouldn't want to see is you taking large numbers of URLs and redirecting them to the new URL homepage. Like that would be a bad maneuver. So as long as it was, this page to the same page, different form, then I like it. What do you think, Charles? You've done a lot of these.
I think they got a mess on their hands. So my first question would be how long? So this was a www site that got basically migrated over to a non-www site. My first question is, when did that happen? If it happened literally like a week ago, I would say undo it. Just undo it immediately. You're going to suffer for about 30 days, but you'll be okay in the long run. If for some reason, oh boy. So there's okay, it's a lot more than I could probably do just here, but so if it was just a week, all right, I'm going to come up with a couple scenarios. If it was like, let's say a week or 2 weeks ago, someone set redirects from the www to the non-www. What I would do is I would undo those redirects and I would make sure all your internal links point to www, all your canonicals point to www, your XML sitemaps point to www, and I'm assuming that all of your links coming in are pointing to the www version. You can just kind of undo it. If it's been more than a month, then you're going to have to unwind this a little bit. It's not huge, not necessarily a huge problem. You would still, I would make sure I'd undo all the redirects. I would make sure all the canonicals and the internal links point to the www version, but I would allow Google to crawl the non-www version. And when it hits the non-www version, all the links point to www and the canonical points to www. So so Google knows about the non-dub version. We need to allow it to crawl the non-dub version pointing to the www version. So that's kind of the real high level how you'd unwind if you're trying to go back to www. If someone came and said, we're going from www to non-www, and that's just the way it's going to be, and you can't, you can't get them to, change their mind, then you're going to do a version of that number 2, where like, all right, all of our links are pointed to dub. Google knows about dub and non-dub. Now we have to train Google that there's a non-dub version. So we have to allow Google to hit the dub version, see the canonicals, see the links point to the non-dub, and then after about 2 weeks, then you can implement all the 301s. So depending on when this happened and what we want our end state to be, you have a couple different paths, but we have to allow Google. The problem with just putting up 301 redirects is then Google can't find the old stuff to know that it's changed, and it thinks the old stuff is still out there. So you have to allow Google to crawl the old stuff to find the new stuff. So I
He said it was
realized
last
that was
weekend.
a lot.
Yeah, he said it was last weekend.
Yeah, if it really was just like a week ago,
yeah. He said
And-
old SEO did it. So my guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
with Clint. It
Yeah.
sounds like it happened a while ago and they discovered it last week.
Yeah.
So this could be, if it was just physically done a week ago, you can unwind it. You're going to have a little bit of pain, but really no big deal. If it was discovered a week ago, and it was done 6 months ago, now you're going to have to unwind this somehow, or first decide, what do we want our future state to be? Dub or non-dub? Pick one. I don't care which one it is, just gotta pick one and then stick with it. I would agree that if you had this great backlink portfolio pointing to dub versions, then I would lean towards doing the dub. If this is a site that's been around for 10 years and just the last 2 years it's moved to non-dub, I would agree then as well, stick with the dub. That's what Google knows. But yeah, if this was done a while ago, there's going to be an unwind process you're going to have to go through. Or you got to train Google on the new version.
It sounds like he hasn't given me any indication that this is true, but it sounds like there's this old SEO. They got this website. It's probably had something like a traffic drop, and they found thousands of web pages on it that had low quality content. So they deleted it. And then they said, oh, well, you have all these backlinks too. One's interpretation of good backlink is someone else's bad backlink. So they killed the dub to clean the backlink profile, and they set a site-wide soft 404 redirect to the homepage. That's what it sounds like they did to me. So they essentially just made your work 1,000 times harder.
Yeah, it's a compound.
I'm looking at the
shit show right
chat. I think according to it, it says, oh, okay, so yeah, it looks like what we have some undoing to do. It was done by us personally last weekend, and I agree we should keep it. So it sounds like they did the 301s last weekend, and they're thinking they want to keep dub. So the first thing I would do is remove the redirects from dub to non-dub. But you have to clean it up because Google now has both versions floating around.
Yeah, you have to support both and canonicalize to the official.
Yeah, for about a week or two, make sure that both can be resolved, but all the links should go to dub and the canonical should point to dub. And then after like maybe a week, 2 weeks, then you can put the 301s in there and you should be okay. But you will have about 30 days of pain for sure.
And this advice totally changes if this website has absolutely nothing to lose. If it's producing 0 organic revenue and it's getting 0 traffic from search, you can literally do anything you need to do that gets you to your goal the fastest. You don't have to be careful if there's nothing to lose. So just know that the advice can change depending upon what you're risking. If you're risking everything, like if the company's not going to make payroll, well, then you got to be a lot more careful. All right. And so a lot of things I do with my own websites, I would never do with a client's website. So keep it all in perspective.
I can tell Clint's really mad. He's like, why did this happen? Why did you do this?
Yeah, I'm just like trying to think of
I can just tell that face.
People are humans. Humans do silly things. It happens.
I'm just trying to think of a reason. Like, why would I do that? Like, in what, if it has a good backlink profile, what in my right mind would make me, oh, let's just drop the www.
But here's the thing. So you know this, Clint, because you've seen it a lot of times. somebody will come in and some tool will say, oh, these are low quality links. And somebody will figure out, okay, this is the only way I know how to clean that up, which is not, first, it doesn't need to be cleaned up. And second, that's a really bad way of trying to clean it up.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
that's kind of where you are.
it got them all their green lights in their WordPress plugin.
I, mm.
I've had
The
devs,
best KPI of all.
I've had devs try to change sites, major sites from dub to non-dub, and then tell me, well, you got to move it to non-dub because that's what everybody does now. It's like, that's not a reason.
Yeah.
Like, so like so Clint's looking for a reason. There could just be, oh, it was a mistake. We didn't mean to do it. Or
Yeah.
it could be a really bad reason. I've had people give some really, I've had website migrations that happen on my presentation. They changed the name of the domain because some general manager didn't like the old domain or wanted to compete against some other site. And there was no, and my first response when I heard that was like, that's not a good reason to do this. And everyone just, yeah, we know, but we're going to do it anyways. Because their KPI was keeping their job. My KPI was trying to keep SEO going well.
Yeah.
And I guess their KPI was better than my KPI.
I was gonna say, are they still employed?
I'm not, they're employed. I am not their employed. So I guess their KPI was better.
Yeah, you had a secondary KPI is what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a citation indexation question. I'm looking to speed up the indexation of client citations as well as bolster these brand properties to rank for a client's brand name. Years ago, I've created client name pipe brand pages that contained a modified version of any About Us page that includes a list of all of the places you can find that brand. In that area, we'd include a list of 50 to 80 citations. I'm wondering if there's a better solution option to speed indexation, and if we know of any reason why this wouldn't be a natural or beneficial practice. I mean, there's a ton of indexation clues that can draw attention from Google. And I like the idea that you're claiming your brands. I would caution you to be very strict about brands because even tiny changes in brand representation can cause Google to go into brand variable testing. And so, yeah, you want to be super strict with brand presentation. And one of the biggest mess ups in branding I've ever seen was Sears, because they did Sears capital S, Sears lowercase s, Sears all caps, Sears.com capital S, Sears.com lowercase s, Sears.com all caps, Sears Roebuck Incorporated, Sears Roebuck. And, it just, the list went on and on and on with all the brands. And what a big problem to make Google sort out. That's a hard entity problem for Google to spend a lot of time and resources on figuring out, and Google doesn't figure those out quickly. So if you're not very strict with your branding, you're probably shooting yourself in the foot at the very start of the race. Same thing with URLs. URLs and brands need equal strictness and never ever changing them. You decide them the right way from the start, and then you stick with it no matter what, even if you made horrible mistakes. Because the cost of fixing those is basically starting over. So you have to start from scratch if you're going to change all your URLs and brand later. What do you guys think?
I think that the choice to index those links or not, or those pages or not, is up to Google. The best you can do is just get them to crawl them, whether it's these sort of hub pages that you're building or the links themselves. I go back to Clint's, put it in a lot of different indexers and call it a day. As best you can do is invite Google to crawl the damn links, and then, what they do with those links and in what time period is up to them.
Yeah, Google's not going to index all 80 of those, for example. They're just not going to do it. There's no reason for them to do it. And your particular niche will show you which particular directories are important to Google. Get in those, get in all 80, but focus on indexing the ones that Google has already shown you they're going to index. A Yext account gives you like 150 citations, about 10 of them actually index. But those 150 citations are still useful. So yeah, don't focus so much on that. I will say that the method you described, Terry Samuels teaches that. I'm pretty sure it still works. So I say continue going. I'm of the you don't need all 80 on your page. Just kind of create a nice loop with the top 10 that are ranking, and you'll be all right, I think.
Yeah, you got a $25 answer from Clint there. I totally agree. Um, let's see. Next question. Um, let's see. Looks like my question got missed. For someone starting a new informational niche site with limited content and zero authority, what are some smart ways to earn free backlinks early on? So I'm assuming it's WordPress, and the historic way of doing this is you would turn on RSS syndication on your blog in the early days of your website, knowing that your content will be scraped and represented in many places on the web. So you're by turning on that syndication, you're allowing the world to use it. All right. So duplicate content issues everywhere. And you'll probably not win that fight because the scraper sites do a better job than you do on ranking scraped content. But what you get is all of the links in that content, pointing back at you. So you're going to get some link acquisition if you're writing content that scraper sites are eager to scrape. So if you have the right topics, and not all topics are the right topics, then you can use this strategy and get backlinks naturally by syndicating. And then at a certain point, you would flip the switch. You would stop syndicating your content. All of the content from the past is dead to you. You're never going to fix it. You can keep it alive because, why not? But it's going to be from that day forward, your site's content is new and unique to the website only, not syndicated. So now you're building up content that you can rank, you can use your authority of backlinks to boost, and you can start building your own rankings. So typically it's a give it away to get links, and then, stop giving it away, do unique original content to build rankings. You can go black hat instead of that, and there are tools out there that will get you links and build a profile, and there are courses out there on how to do that relatively safely. There is no completely safe way to do that, but there are relatively safe ways to do link building, and tiered link building specifically. Never make a mess you can't clean up. But yeah, there are ways to do this.
So Ted, so I agree with you 100%. I think an easy path, like, hey, how do we, 'cause I see a couple different questions popping up about, hey, how do you build links, and what's a cheap way to build links or free way to, I'm seeing some people say free backlinks. Some people are saying I can't afford press releases. One of the things I would say is build social media accounts, And then the last question, the guy talked about building citations. A lot of these citations are going to link to your site. That's good brand. This is all important brand building anyways for your site. So you want to build and establish a brand. I would disagree or maybe argue slightly on the free versus So if I say, well, I need free backlinks, but it's not free, I'm going to have to spend 5, 6, 7, 10 hours building backlinks. What's more valuable, me spending 5 hours building backlinks or going to someplace like Magic PR and saying, here's a couple bucks. Could you build me could you build me backlinks? Could you do a press release for me? It's probably a lot cheaper to have a service do something for you. Than doing it yourself. Not saying I would still honestly, I'd still probably, now I'm saying that out loud, I'd still do the social stuff regardless, and then say, all right, the next thing I do is do my press releases. But those aren't free. I don't like the word free or cheap because they're
Yes.
not
There's no
free and
free
cheap.
links.
You're
If you
spending your
value
time. Yeah.
your time, it's never free.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if you don't, it's still not free because, I can sit there and say, all right, here's what you got to do. You got to go log into Tumblr, sign up for free thing, get a thing, put an article up there. I was like, well, you had to write the article. You had to spend time logging into Tumblr. Now, all right, so I got this article on Tumblr. Now, how am I going to get the damn thing crawled? Because Google's not just going to go find. Well, now I got to go, have some sort of indexation process or tool or something else, or so there's never a free. If you have not a lot of money and you're trying to do it with time, you can do that. Then it's a matter of, like, for example, I can tell you go build it on all these Web 2 properties, but then they're not going to get crawled and you're going to have to spend time doing that. Charles, going and building on, these socials. A lot of the socials can get crawled and things like that, but does it bring traffic? Well, now you're looking at what's the objective? What's the business objective? Is it to get links to, get better rankings, or is it to get traffic? Because those are different. You also have, you can take, if you've got really good content, that you think is amazing content that people need to see. It's not just something that, an AI vomited up or something like that. You can promote it socially. You can go on places like Quora and use it to answer questions, or, in Facebook groups that are about your particular, topic, and say, hey, here's a helpful article about this thing. And, but then again, that's time. It's researching where people, gathered and talking about this topic that I can get in the conversation and drop my article in there to get, the link and the traffic. So, but there's no free.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I was going to move on.
I was just going to say that assumes that you need links. Like we've worked from the assumption that we need links, and I'm not saying you don't ever need links, but the first thing I would make sure is, are you optimized properly? Have you done your internal linking properly? Like do what you can easily control first, which is, I have a website, Google's crawling it, it's crawling it regularly, it's optimized well, we're internally linking properly. Like, do all that stuff before you start even thinking of building any links, because you can build as many links as you want. If Google can't see the site or it's not crawling it, that's,
Then
you just wasted a lot of time and money.
All right, there are a few more questions I did skip at the beginning. My bad. I didn't know it was auto scrolling and I missed a few. All right. Is it bad that my client's website has a bunch of URLs that end with pound exclamation? Google says they do not read after the pound. The canonicals are self-referencing. I would say it's worrisome, but not necessarily a problem. So you need evidence of bad things happening. And if there is no evidence of bad things happening, then it could be in a state of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So the question I would wonder is, is there a problem you're trying to figure out where you think this is part of it, or did you just find it worrisome the way I find it worrisome? Because I'd rather not have it than have it. Any thoughts on this?
Those typically come from table of contents plugins
Yes.
that make those to direct points on a web page. Kind of balances it worth it, as long as Google handles the canonical correctly, you're not creating an issue, because they have passage indexing, and passage indexing leverages those things even in their own
Yes.
search results when they're citing your content. So it's honestly, it's okay to do it as long as everything is working properly on Google's end, I would say it's not a bad thing. You're not creating duplicate content. It's all canonical properly to the right page. It's essentially like a parameter, I guess would be the easiest way to say
Yeah.
it. So, but you can, Google handles those, they understand them, and they even implement it into Chrome. Go highlight something on a web page and hit right click, and it'll copy the highlight, and it'll create one of those hashtag links for you. So I think that's part of that came out after passage indexing came out. So I think those systems are intertwined at this point.
Mhm.
In Search Console, you can find 500 errors in pages and also in crawl stats, but oftentimes they don't show the same number. In fact, it can be very different. Why are they not the same? My understanding, and I believe it to be true, is that Search Console is a sampling of your data and not all of your data. And so, numerous times in the past, Google has said, yeah, we like to give you some bad examples, some great examples, and some average examples. And that's what you're seeing is kind of a diagnostic mix. So you can help identify certain types of issues. But it's not meant to be an authoritative analytic package. So if you're trying to treat it like it's authoritative, complete data, you're probably going to get some bad conclusions from that. And that's why those numbers will never add up to anything. What do you guys think?
Search
Agree.
Console data is shit. It's just like Lee and Charles said earlier, if your data is crap and you're trying to make decisions off of it, and same to your point with analytics, Search Console is probably the worst thing to be making decisions off of outside of just going, where do I go next to look for the next opportunity?
Yeah, but don't get us wrong. Every tool has a valid use case, and there are some diagnostic benefits to the data they provide. It's just not an analytics package. How do search engines beyond Google define top quality backlinks, and do these definitions vary by industry and between the different search engines? I would say, academically, theoretically, hypothetically, anecdotally, any more qualifying things here, because this is tinfoil hat territory, and I love tinfoil hat territory. But when you look at a scale like PageRank, which has to be logarithmic, so powers of 10 to go up each tier of PageRank, at the higher tiers, your score is going to be based on the averages. And so you cannot maintain a quality backlink profile into the upper tiers of PageRank. It just can't be done. So the whole notion of quality backlink profiles is a small website's game. It's to get a medium response out of a new website, which is a good start, but it only goes so far. You'll typically outgrow that by PageRank, somewhere between PageRank 5 and PageRank 7. The manual link building becomes impossible to do to the next tiers because you start needing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of manually built links. And so that's where most manual link building dies. You need to go to different strategies. So, I would just recognize that because of the logarithmic nature of how they measure those things, that you probably just want to focus on the averages because that's where the game is in the end.
The only disagreement I would have with you, Ted, on when you're looking at like enterprise link building is you're 100% right. Like if you look at if you have an enterprise site and you look at their backlink profile, it is horrendous. It does not look good at all. And if you spent your time trying to disallow, you'd be a full-time job. But I have done manual backlink building for specific pages, for pages that are very, very important for the business for one reason or the other. We will do backlinking for things like that. And that's primarily just to kind of prime the pump. Because you can put a page up there, you can do internal linking. That'll take you to a point But if I want to beat out somebody else that's number one for, let's just say, internet speed test, I'm going to need some external links to do that.
Yeah, if you have a page rank 8, your site-wide footer link instantly makes a page rank 5.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
most of us mere mortals cannot pull that off.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do internal linking, and that would bounce us into the top 5 consistently, very, very easily. However, there were times where top 5 wasn't good enough, and especially now, top 5 is definitely not good enough. But then that's very focused, and it's not about doing link building to the domain. It's about doing link building to this page because we have to boost the page.
And that kind of SEO tends to be promotional because by the time you try to do it 100 times, you've diluted its effectiveness. So I found you get into these practices of promotional SEO. What's the most important objective of this month? And we're going to focus those site-wide footers promotionally on those objectives. But just know it's not an infinite resource, even for the PageRank 8. Let's see.
Are you going to answer her question though? You never answered her question.
Sorry, let me go back. I'm terrible about that.
For the great points, I was just like, okay, so what's the answer to the question?
Well, I kind of did and I kind of didn't. My answer is that anybody that's looking at the full problem of backlinks is going to need a logarithmic scale. So the other search engines are going to eventually be built on the averages if they're doing it in a similar way to Google.
So here's just something else. Google's PageRank algorithm is protected, so Bing can't use a PageRank, sort of algorithm, basically. But in Bing's webmaster tools or webmaster guidelines, they lay out, and I think one of the things they lay out in there is that Bing prefers links from domains and pages, particularly that are already indexed in Bing. They give some, trust to that. So if I go build a cloud link to a Tumblr that I just threw up, to a WordPress that I just threw up, and I show those to Bing, Bing's going to shrug its shoulders on a new site because none of those pages are indexed in Bing. But if I get, a link from something that's already indexed in Bing to my site, then it's going to give some credibility to the additional links that I've already built.
And that's one of the many nuggets that used to only be findable in top SEO training. Or tested SEO training. Sorry.
So, when you're looking at, I mean, they do give that out, and so it's just one of those pieces where because there's no page rank, Bing has to do things differently because of some of those patent protections that Google has on other IP.
They could license it, and we don't know.
Well, they take the concept of 0 + 0 and they actually use it really well. So if Charles makes a brand new website that has no representation whatsoever, they'll probably give it a little bit of a chance, but for the most part, that website will fail on Bing until Lee's really good website that has already earned Bing's trust links to it. And so I think that Bing kind of handles backlinks a little bit better than PageRank does nowadays, but they had the opportunity to watch Google learn. It sucks that Bing is run by crap ass business owners, but they'd have a better market share. But their search engine does a little bit better, in my opinion. And you could tell they definitely handle backlinks completely different than Google's do.
Yeah. Microsoft, unfortunately, still thinks the best way to beat Google is to copy their every move.
Yeah.
All right. Is structured data schema good to use for AI search? If yes, why? I have seen no research on this. So again, tinfoil hat town. But the fact that you can rank a web page with nothing but schema is, and thanks to Terry Samuels and Clint Butler for that research. The fact that that's even possible definitively proves that it is deeply ingrained in the Google ecosystem. And we know that certain subsystems will look for the aggregate rating, and other subsystems will look for the organization. And so it could be a tangled web of references from all over Google's systems to this one body of information. So, we're not even sure, how it's architected and all the various touch points that it's in. So I would say the best answer is ignore it at your own peril. Um,
I'm going
so
to push back, sir. I'm going to push back. And here's where I'm
okay.
going to push back. Not that I disagree with anything that you said there, but when you're looking at AI, the question basically boils down to if I put schema on my page, does it help me appear in an AI answer? And that I haven't seen, testing on. A lot of theories about that, but no testing on it. Um, so, I think it's still open, an open question.
So I did run a test, Lee, and my answer is maybe. I can't
Excellent.
say
Very definitive.
I can't say it was. So the problem was, so what I did, I was trying to test something else about trying to make a knowledge panel pop. So I took a domain, I took two domains that were just complete nothing domains that had no value to them, and I put biographies up for a buddy of mine. Put a picture of his, put a biography on the page, had just AI spit out some biographies looking at the chat GPT, or looking at his LinkedIn, and then I put very robust schema, person schema in that page. And I linked it up to all of his social profiles, yada, yada, yada. What did not happen is I did not get a knowledge panel to pop doing that. So two junk domains pointing at each other with schema will not make a knowledge panel pop, at least not in that experiment. What did happen though, is I forgot about that test that I started up almost a year ago. And he went on ChatGPT about a month or two ago, searched himself, and he got references to the two spam sites I built. And for about an hour, he thought that somebody was trying to steal his identity, and he didn't realize I was the one. He even reached out to me and said, "Charles, what's someone doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, let me tell you what I was trying to do." So does that mean that it was schema? I can't say it was definitely the schema, but I can say that after ChatGPT could have just crawled the domains. It could have just taken the information out of domains and used them as citations. It is interesting, though, that those are the two pages that it sourced in ChatGPT, the only two pages it sourced, and those are also the only two pages with schema.
How
So
many pages does your friend have about him? I mean, I'm not saying it's
yeah,
wrong. I
about a
think
dozen,
the
not a
strong argument
lot.
that I've seen is that AI is built for structured data, so schema would feed that easier than it would feed even the search engine algorithms. But you know, where's the why aren't we seeing an influx of I throw schema on my page and now the AI is loving me? That's what I haven't
And,
seen
and
yet.
and that's why I give it a maybe. It could just be
Yeah.
because there's a dozen pages, and these are two of the most robust pages about him because there's several paragraphs of content about him. Um,
Yeah, I noticed
but
also
it could,
the schema guy is remarkably quiet on this. I wonder if he has
yes, I'm waiting for Clint
tests
to
he's
jump
not
in.
share it. So I'm gonna shut up and just stare at Clint.
That's what I was waiting for. It's just like it's my new kindler, gentler Clint, and just cut you guys off and be like, you're all both crazy. So honestly, they're looking at, in my opinion, how this comes out is most of us are doing schema usually typically in JSON. A lot of the outputs in AI tools are JSON. So ergo, oh, they must be using schema. But then you look at some of the analysis from the super nerds and how these data systems are actually built and created, and which, like, to Charles' test, did that work in all of the AIs? Did like you were you able to put that in Gemini, Claude, Gronk, and ChatGPT and see all the same thing? I would venture to probably say that no, it didn't cite all of them and all four of those. Maybe just did one or two, because those were the data sources that it referenced.
Mhm.
And then if you look at how there's a super nerd study out. I forget the guy's name, but essentially what he did is he was analyzing some of these models and realized that they weren't even reading HTML of web pages. They were scripting out and using just all the word text. So if they're doing that, ergo, all your schema is ripped out and so they're not even seeing it. It's not a part of the analysis. So I'm in the maybe camp with Charles because it depends on the model, how the model is programmed to learn from web documents, if the schema is actually going to be valuable or
Yeah, well, you also have the data question. Some of the models use source data from Bing, some source from Google, some source from Common Crawl, and or these schema pages that Charles built for his buddy unknowingly. Uh, are they present in all of the data sets? So you got that question as well.
I would also like this is completely in left field, but does with how many people are using ChatGPT, let's go 200 million, with 200 million people are engaging with it, do they really need to scrape the web anymore to figure out generative text and build a knowledge base? And they have memory now, so they just regurgitate that memory and build that data set and that training over and over and over again, and it compounds upon itself. They kicked it off with the web, sure, but I mean, do they even have to do it now?
Don't know. It's a good question though.
So I just checked ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, and I asked them all the same question. Tell me about the person's name. ChatGPT gave me information, cited the two sites. Claude couldn't tell me anything about the person, and Gemini gave me an overview of a bunch of different people with the same name. So So I think that puts me into a much softer maybe than I had before.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to say schema helps with AI, well, what do you mean by AI? Because are we talking
We
about
have to be specific.
ChatGPT?
Which model are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's another question.
Yeah.
I didn't ask that. I only asked the question once on, like, for example, ChatGPT. I asked it on 4.0. I don't know what it would do if I went to the other ones.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that yet.
Well, that's
I-
a great one because if you look at Claude, if you say Claude uses Common Crawl, it's going to say, I don't know anybody's name, Bob who, because Common Crawl is not as extensive. Gemini, using Google's database is going to say, which of these Bobs are you talking about? Because it's got more, Bob Smiths in the database. And, Bing, which has a little more limited crawl, seems to know about your buddy. So ChatGPT is saying, oh, let me tell you about Bob. It's very consistent with what we've seen with the data sources. Although it's still, that may be the original stuff. I agree with Clinton. We're not sure whether they're enhancing their data pull or even licensing other search engine data that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So,
And I would say the bulk of the maybe is in the realm of emergent factors. So an emergent factor is like sentiment. So we know from the Google leak that Google is using click-through rate. And because of that, if you say the top 10 best plumbers in Seattle, Washington, like Yelp does, that might be a best practice to win the click, for which click-through rate is the thing that's actually coded. And so because of that, things like sentiment can be emergent factors that were never coded into the Google algorithm, but help you rank better because they help you get the thing that is the thing.
And they could be learned through the nav boost process.
Yeah.
Nav boost is CTR, bounce rate, pogo sticking out
Yeah.
combined, right? So it could theoretically, machine learning can read all the titles and figure out the sentiment is this is what that particular search result is looking for. We score best of list higher than the rest of them.
And so imagine, if you will, the possibility that as part of Google's large language model training, they're including things like authority and trust scores in some shape or form as to whether or not this is something they should be comfortable citing versus something that might be embarrassing if they cite. And so, if they have such a thing in the ecosystem, and if I can think of it, they probably can too, because they're probably smarter and they've probably already thought of it. So, if that's there, there could be emergent factors where the schema made you trustworthy. Therefore, that little score during the training was a bit higher than somebody else. And so you're a little bit more citation worthy in their ecosystem. So just, the maybe is in the thing that's very hard to test, very hard to find out. But it's not beyond imagination that they would be interested in something like that at some point. All right. So if a small business can't afford press releases, all right. So keep in mind that you get 500 referring domains for about, $100 to $300. That's kind of the cost of it. Are there other physical ways to build high quality backlinks? So how much time do you invest in building each backlink? And what do you value that time at? Because if you're spending, let's say, 10 minutes on a backlink, you can very quickly get up to $100 to $300 of your time and not get to 500. So you kind of got to run the numbers there. Are there ways to get high quality? So that's another thing. Quality typically costs you more and are often harder to get. So I think affording and what you're talking about, it's kind of a weird predicament you're in
I
because
want
kind of,
portable diamonds. That's what they're asking for.
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a
exactly.
way, yeah. It's a small business, and you go. If Lee opens up a landscaping business, and Ted and Charles have established businesses in the local community, and Lee wants some free backlinks, he can go give Ted and Charles a hand job and maybe get a free backlink. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
possibility, but
friends and
That wasn't
family is a
free.
good route.
yeah, but I'm kind of with you, Ted. If you can't afford a PR, I mean, Madge is one of the more expensive ones. Sure, someone can argue that you can't afford a Madge PR, but you can go get a cheapo one on Fiverr for $50, and you can't afford content. And so if you aren't doing content, and PR in and of itself is content, right, Madge? You do good PR, you're creating good content. So if you're not creating good content, how do you expect a high quality site to link to you? They're not going to do it out of the kindness of their heart unless you have soft hands.
I think the other piece is if you're looking at this, like a high quality link tends to have some power, some authority behind it, which
Yeah.
means links. So I'm going to go over here and for my local plumbing site, I'm going to go build this plumbing site, a separate plumbing site to get a link from, and I put some content on it. Wait, I can't afford to create content. But what about I have to build some links to this PBN site? Well, I can't afford to build links, because I can't afford it to build my site. So you're not going to be able to afford to build the quality, powerful link because it requires all the same things you can't afford for the main site.
Yeah.
And
So
for the record, that's not my favorite Clint analogy.
You like
but it is how Lee's landscaping ranks number one. That's all I'm gonna say.
um, but yeah, there are black hat ways you can go. If you think about synergy sites, that's kind of a really good way to go. So, say for example, the small business sells high-end poker tables. Then you make a man cave blog and you make a website about the different rules of poker games that people can play. And then you make another blog that follows professional poker events. And all of those things build synergy and topical relevance and capture a different slice of the market eyeballs. And they can all advertise the poker tables. They can all link into the poker table website. They can all have press releases in their own rights. They can They can all target the same terms and rank side by side. So I would probably go a synergy site route if you can't afford anything else. But again, creating all those sites is going to be thousands of dollars of your time. So, what is there to not afford about a press release?
I
Uh,
was going to say on a personal note, I don't appreciate Clint sharing my private outreach methods.
yeah, your link building tactics.
Yeah, those are proprietary, sir.
It's a whole new meaning of networking.
Whole new meaning of outreach.
Outreach, yeah.
Ah, all right, now to the bottom, and let's see. I think this is where we're at. Yeah, the analogy was frightening. Sorry for that. Sorry if anyone was triggered. Uh, Yeah, and the other thing about the press releases is if you know up front, include them in the cost of your SEO, and then you can always afford one. All right, so with that, thank you everyone. I'll try to do better on being more consistent going forward. Sorry for the content outage, but always note that you can see the GBP Roast, which is JP from chat. He has a YouTube show where they do live reviews of Google business profiles, the good, the bad, the ugly. There's also SEO this week, which is really quite good. So if you're not watching SEO this week, which is Clint's show, check it out. There's more polish on it now than I've ever seen before, and I really like what he's done with it. The format's great, the information is top notch. So if you're looking for the solid nugget drops, well, you got to see Clint's show.
Clint's show is more focused now too. So, and this is a good thing, Clint. I used to have to turn the speed up on your show, and I tried that last night. I'm like, that's too fast. I got to go back to regular speed. So,
And
there's a lot of dense content.
Madge, do you have something you need to announce?
Yes. So, um, basically, I've been talking about this new PR 360 service that's coming soon. Um, I've been doing a lot of testing since you guys were off. I've managed to basically transform any press release, whether it's a new PR that we've done for you, even an older PR that could be a year or 2 years old. We transform it into an actual news story. And we've got a publication in the UK that owns around 150 sites. And we've managed to get in every single one of them.
Wow.
So we're transforming the story. Every story is unique. Every link within the publication on this UK network is a do follow link, guys. So this is your first. I wanted to mention it here first because you guys have supported me for a very long time. You've been there for me, so in return, I wanted SEO Fight Club to be aware of what I'm about to launch. I don't think there's a service like this ever, where you're getting a press release and a digital PR campaign in one, and I can prove it. I've already done it. So,
And
exciting time.
I can't tell you how many times people ask for options to get press releases outside of the United States.
Yeah.
So this is one of those. So if you've been asking those questions, this is kind of cool on multiple levels.
Yeah, so the testing that I've done recently, we can get branded links, not just to, so imagine a client has just launched a book, an Amazon book. We also got a link within a news story on a major news publication in the UK, going to the Amazon link, as well as a branded link to the client's site. And the the beautiful thing is it's a do follow link. A lot of people complain, oh, a lot of press releases are no follow. Now you have the best of both worlds. When I'm doing the press release for you, then I'm taking that PR and transforming it into an actual breaking news, expert commentary, data-driven, reactive PR. We have a whole team now doing this. So yeah, I can't wait to launch it. So
Is this going to be a new package, Madge, or is it going to be part of your gold?
no, so there's going to be a whole revamp on pricing because a lot of the questions were, I can't afford a PR. And yes, I know my price point is a bit on the high side. That is because we offer more than just a PR. We're
Mhm.
doing your podcast, we're doing your video reels, we're doing your YouTube video. Now, yes, the pricing will be slightly different, and there will be a new package coming. I'm bringing back my platinum package, and I'm not just doing this. So we've just done the first UK major publication, the first network. We're going to do the next UK network, and then I'm targeting the entire USA Today network. They have close to 300 sites, and I'm training my team of how to deal with the US market because a lot of my clients are US based. So I want everyone to have the best of both worlds, right? And I know for a fact of how much of a game changer this will be. This has never been done before, and I'm glad I'm the first to do it. So, yes, the pricing is coming soon, and there's going to be a full revamp of everything.
Congrats, Madge.
Very cool.
Sounds
Thank you.
great.
Let's see. YouTube video that gets viewed is one thing. YouTube video that does not get viewed is not the same thing. Um, well, yeah, it depends what you're announcing too, right? Press releases about popular things do better than press releases about mundane things. So yeah, there's plenty of room for your press release to not work. So
And what
uh,
is you as a owner, just because Madge, and I'm just using Madge as an example because he's here, it could be the same if any of us. If I make you a video and then I put it up, and there's nowhere in the agreement that says I have to promote your video, then why is that a a strike against me and the service I offer? Right? You weren't going to take the time to create that video. I know you weren't going to do it because you can go across the internet and look on YouTube and there's no video of you doing your press release in that format that he's got his system doing and his team's making. So holding that against him, like, oh, just because I have this video doesn't mean anything. Well, one, it's a backlink from YouTube. So
It's like,
yeah, in and of itself, it does mean something. But if you want people to actually watch the damn thing, then go promote it. And if you don't promote it, then shut the hell up because you didn't pay for that creator to make your video. You paid for the video. That's it. That's all you got.
yeah, the links are designed to power up, the distribution.
Yeah.
yeah, a video without views is effectively an indexer. So it's getting those press releases indexed if they're linked in the description. So keep in mind that it's a network of assets and that kind of changes what you get from it. Um, Promoting unviewed videos. All videos are unviewed when they begin.
Yep.
So
Well, see,
they all start unviewed.
He's going after a particular thing. He's like looking for audience. The purpose in his eyes of the video is to generate an audience. So an unviewed video would not generate audience. That's not the purpose that, for example, Madge, when he builds videos and podcasts, it's not designed to build audience. It's designed to get links from YouTube and from, some of the podcast services and everything else to power up the distribution to get it more thoroughly crawled and powered up to a degree. So it's got an entirely different purpose. It's like the 500 links from one of his packages doesn't guarantee that any one of those press releases is going to get read by a human.
Yeah,
they're links.
And you can promote shit videos. I've seen it. You can just go to YouTube and open anything. You can see the trash out there, and they'll
I've got crap
unless
videos.
it's a black video, like, and then it, 3 second or 5 second YouTube short that's all black. Then yeah, and you could still get views on those. I bet.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's okay to disagree and to have a difference of of opinion, and your experience has led you a different direction, and that doesn't invalidate it. That's all fine.
This goes back to what Charles was saying earlier, that we were talking about the same metric and a different KPI.
Yeah, different perspectives see the same number differently.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. Untrue, you will not grow an audience promoting unviewed videos. Well, you know, that differs from my experience too. And I don't want to invalidate your experience because you're in a different keyword space, different industry, different niche, so I still fall back on different people will see the same number and interpret it differently. Um, yeah, because the
If you're promoting a video,
I have is the thing. You saying try it, you'll see, and that's just the thing. Is my experience didn't end the way yours did.
yeah,
So
if
that's
you're
the
promoting
problem.
a video, if you have a video, Ted makes a video that has no views, and then Lee promotes said video, and then Ted gets views, ergo the promotion worked because the promotion increased the view count of the video. What is the KPI for the video? I want the video to drive traffic to my website. That's a KPI. So what are the metrics that would have to see, Charles? If my business goal is that video to send traffic to my website, what metrics would I have to track in regards to my YouTube video? And in regards to Lee's promotion, what metrics, what traffic and rankings did lead promotion? Let's just assume we're going to do it with SEO. What traffic and rankings did Lee's promotion result in views for Ted's video? And what metrics are we click through rate? Probably, I would assume click through rate from the link in the description. Are we going to consider part of that? That this is a success. Again, if you have really shit videos, even the best promotion is not going to get you a lot, but it's still going to get you views.
And and we probably disagree on how we interpret uh you know good content, because oftentimes people will say, well, my website is good content, and Lee and Charles and Clint, they're all filthy web spammers, and as long as we all agree on that, then the system works.
Yeah.
So it's like I look at YouTube and I find that about 1 in 12 of the videos in my YouTube stream is something I'm interested in. And so I would call 11 out of 12 bad content that rose to the top through promotion.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is AI stuff that I wish would die, but it's there. It's getting elevated through promotional means, through clickbait, through all of that is promotion.
And
It's
people are
shitty
watching
content
it.
that's working because of the promotion they put into it.
Yeah, Ted was
Um,
just mad when he found out that the 1,000 views to his video from my promotion came from my CTR bot, and that's why nobody bought a damn thing from his jewelry site.
well, and that's another thing. Like, I knew early on that YouTube channels that buy subscribers, they're kind of fake and hollow. I see it all the time. People with 150,000 subscribers and their YouTube videos get 83 views. That's, kind of the same thing. And so, yeah, you can go that route, and you're right, it doesn't work well. But that's not to say they won't get some eyeballs. There are a market of people out there who will view a channel just because of the subscriber count. Um, But yeah, you know, to say promotion does nothing is visibly false in my opinion. It might not be worthwhile in all cases, but worth doing and doesn't work at all, two different things. I think you got to look at it on a case by case basis.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, and I
and
think a lot
promotion
of
might be a waste of money for some keywords, you know, totally. I believe that. But to say it never works in all cases, I have a hard time swallowing that pill.
yeah, looking at the comments, it's goes back to, you know, I think it's a wonderful tie back to what Charles was talking about earlier. It's what's the objective? And you know, if my objective is to get a link or to get views so it gets up in YouTube, so somebody clicks on it and maybe I get some real traffic to my site, you know, that's different than if I want to create some really good content and have, you know, real conversations with real people via, you know, interaction. Those are completely different objectives from the same tactic. You know, putting a video on YouTube in this example, or putting out a press release. And I never once called Madge and said, "Hey, Madge, just checking in for the press release you did for me. How many people read it?" You know, he's not going to know.
Yeah.
And he didn't
Yeah.
promise me a single person would. And I didn't think, you know, that anybody was ever. I'm actually surprised when I see referral traffic coming from a press release distribution. I'm like, holy shit, somebody actually saw it and clicked on it.
Yeah,
I mean, I did PRs with, I used Cision for PRs, and they traffic by, so we showed your, what is that fucking thing that they gave us, Madge? It was, they give you this big old list, and they're like, look, your PRs was seen by 2 million people, and you look at your traffic, you didn't get no fucking traffic. Yeah, I didn't get no
There's not 2 million there. Yeah.
Don't even, you know,
Yeah.
don't even fucking clown me. You know
That's
what I mean?
because Search Console data is sampled, Clint. You really did get it. They're just
Yeah.
sampling it way down.
Yeah,
Right.
the problem with this whole conversation is I still see shitty YouTube videos getting tons of traffic.
Yeah.
And so, you know, either we differ on the definition of quality content, or we're definitely disagreeing that promotion has an effect on this crappy content. You know, I agree that promotion won't transform the content in any way, but to say it has no effect, you know, it might not be a worthwhile effect. It might not be a lasting effect. It might not be a good outcome by any measure, but that's different from no effect. Um,
Fight. Finally had a fight. Took you guys
yeah,
long enough. Jeez.
yeah, 300 episodes.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. If I hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah,
know.
no, you know, I'm with you. Don't change your opinion. I'm not invalidating what you say. I'm just saying there are multiple perspectives on what you're saying, and
Yeah.
they don't all come to the same conclusion.
And if you hear other people giving you different perspectives, it's not, oh, we're attacking you.
Yeah,
I mean, get off
because
of the social media fucking crybaby trip and just take it for what it is. I mean, we have different
yeah,
opinions, and
and
that's just the way it is.
and I totally believe that Madge's solution is not an answer to all problems.
Yeah.
All right.
I just sucks.
Damn, I thought it was, man.
No.
Don't listen to him, Madge. It is. It solves everything.
That's not
It makes you
that's not
coffee in
what
the
it says
morning
on
as
my
well.
YouTube video. I just launched a YouTube video going, Madge's new service, totally crap.
Yeah.
When are you launching that so I know when to set it for public view?
I used a Madge PR to help train my helper monkey, and that monkey will not help me.
Yeah.
It must be writing the match PR second.
No, there's you know, Clint is gruff. Don't take it personally.
Even
I like
even
hearing
the
other
new
perspectives.
even the new and improved Clint is still a little gruff.
I like hearing other people's perspectives, but you know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really how do you shape the delivery of your perspective that influences the emotional response you're going to get as a result of it. So Lee and I probably would disagree over 50% of the stuff that we talk about. But Lee isn't a douche and, and saying, this is the way and this is the only way and this is an absolute. And as long as you can talk about your perspective in that way, and as long as you are looking for that type of response, feedback about it, like Ted and I, if we disagree, we're not, verbally attacking each other.
Yeah, we
We just
don't end
understand
the
that we
friendship.
disagree. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, yeah.
But see,
It's
now
not
I'm curious, Madge, is it true that you use trained monkeys to write the press releases? Because
in his early days. In his
I
I
early
can't get all
use
my secrets
Madge to
from him.
train the monkeys.
days.
I know, but now I'm wondering because I hear trained monkeys and Madge. I'm
Yeah.
looking for a scoop here for
That's
the
why he
next.
always went to Dubai. He was always traveling back and forth to Dubai, looking at the monkey farm to make sure the PRs were coming out all right.
Yeah,
That's the
and
word
I
on the
don't think
street.
that's right. I don't think they got monkeys in Dubai.
That's not
he's
the word on the
saying
street.
send any video and I'll remake it. I totally believe that you can get better results through your process.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm thinking about fundamentals and you're thinking about best practices. And again, that's perspective.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, we'll wrap it up. We've gone on way too long. So thank you, everyone, and we'll try to be back at this same time next week. Don't forget about SEO spring training. Really wanted Terry Samuels to be on 2 weeks ago when it would have been better. So my apologies to Terry. SEO spring training, Google it. They rank #1. All right. Thanks a lot.